The modern format just straight up isn't what it used to be. The descriptions that even Wizards of the Coast have on their website are just kind of misleading at this point, because those of you that play Modern know that Modern is no longer a non-rotating format. It functionally is. It feels like Modern Horizons set constructed, block constructed. And I mean, that joke has been going on for a very long time, but it feels kind of weird, because how do you describe this format and entice people to come in that are maybe coming from Standard, that are maybe coming from a Commander environment and want a concise 1v1 format where they can pick up a deck and play for a while? Because generally speaking, you can do that with Legacy, and even Legacy is a format that's plagued by Modern Horizons block constructed mentality. I mean, even right now, the state of Legacy is absolutely insane, but Eternal Weekend has been officially announced for this year, and a lot of Legacy players and Vintage players alike are very excited. So I thought something like this would be really interesting to discuss here. Where Modern is in terms of where Wizards wants it to be, and where it is in terms of where the players see it. Because I think it came up as a really interesting angle from a tweet by Dan PKR earlier this weekend that just, I had such a good laugh at this. Just take a look at the image. Someone might want to update this page because none of these are true anymore. What are we talking about? Well, if we just Google like the modern format Magic the Gathering, one of the first things that you get is the Wizards homepage that says this. So, Format Hub, the modern format, deck size 60 plus. Why play this format? Format doesn't rotate. Seems a little disingenuous. Let me know in the comment section down below if you believe that Modern does not rotate. Variety of metagame. Now this one is a little bit, okay. This one is a little bit, kind of back and forth here, because a lot of people at the LGS level, at the league level, they have a good variety of gameplay. Not everyone is necessarily playing Nadu, especially at this point in the game. I'd be really surprised to see Nadu players at the LGS because they're probably scared to buy into the deck and play into it. So honestly, I would say the metagame is probably pretty diverse when it comes to that aspect. And if you really look at the top of the metagame, I talked about this in a previous video, it kind of feels like Modern is exactly where we need it to be. The top of the metagame is aggro, combo, and control. Okay. All right. I mean, you got Nadu, you got the Boros aggro deck, you have the Jeskai control deck with the energy package. Feels like it's not too bad, right? So the variety of metagame, I mean, for online purposes and bigger tournaments, you're definitely seeing Nadu everywhere. But at the kind of average player level, honestly, it probably is a bigger variety. So this one is a bit of a contentious one. But the last one, master your favorite deck over time. Now, this one is kind of also with the big asterisk as well, because gone are the days when you can buy a modern deck and make slow upgrades over time and just master it throughout. Metagames can ebb and flow. You'd see cards come through Standard and change your deck maybe once or twice. You get a big staple piece and you'd kind of adapt from there. But generally speaking, that is your deck. You'd kind of work through it from there. You get one addition maybe every couple of sets, and that is Modern. Now with Modern Horizons, the sets, Modern Horizons 1, 2, and 3, it feels like the metagame just drastically shifts. Your deck is now unplayable because this other version technically does what your deck does, and it's just way better to play, or your deck is so completely different because the piece introduced to it from the Modern Horizons block drastically changes the plan that you want. So you still have the basis, but you need to work around this one card that was just printed because it's absolutely bonkers. And this just had me laughing. This post had me laughing because literally, like, arguably so, some of these may be true, but none of them can be true at the same time. Modern is no longer what we need it to be, not what we want it to be either. And I think that can change from opinion to opinion, but I mean, this is the website where it kind of comes from. Game duration 20 minutes, number of players, deck size. Why is the game duration 20 minutes? What does that mean? Sorry, like, you're not seeing it under my camera, but why is the game duration 20 minutes? What does that mean? I don't know. Anyway, Robert Taylor then comments down below, yeah, this ain't Modern anymore. Hit me up when we get Modern with cards that actually went through Standard as a competitive format. Modern Horizons constructed sucks. And he says hashtag FMH3. I mean, look at these metagames right here, right? Like this was pre MH3, Yawgmoth, Rakdos Scam, Amulet Titan, which is now just a one ring deck thanks to the one ring thing. Murktide Region is literally a Modern Horizons deck. Domain Zoo as well. Hammer, Creativity, Tron has been one ringified. Vengeance, 4-color Omnath is literally just Modern Horizons block constructed. 4 or 5-color Omnath is the poster. If you needed to look at what Modern Horizons did to Modern, 4 or 5-color Omnath. And then this is from the last 7 days. I mean, Ban, Nadu, Boros Energy, Eldrazi Tron, Mardu Energy, Jeskai Control, Mono Black Midrange, Goryo's Vengeance is the only one that's the same between these. Ruby Storm, Rakdos Midrange, Mono Black Scam is like arguably just Rakdos Scam with better pieces thanks to Necro Dominance, which is what I was talking about. Like, you kind of dropped the whole red piece because it was banned underneath you, and now you got Necro Dominance, which is much better, and now your deck is just that. Like, the metagame is completely different. Goryo's Vengeance is like the only one that stays between. And I mean, you could argue that Mono Green Tron turned into Eldrazi Tron, but even Mono Green Tron is a completely different deck right now, which is what I want to highlight in a second here. Eldrazi Tron coming back into the foray, which is great for the Eldrazi Tron players. They get to eat, but everything is different here. Rakdos Scam is no longer like Rakdos Scam. It's kind of is more so a Rakdos mid-range deck because you are playing more threats. You're not necessarily relying on the whole Grief double scam package. I mean, you are and you aren't, right? So these decks aren't here. I mean, for the last 7 days, no one's playing Yawgmoth. It's absolutely insane to me that the metagame can shift so drastically from set to set. It feels like we just wait another 3 years to get like 3-4 metagames, and then it just completely abolishes again. Like every year we get about like 1 to 2 distinct metagames. We get a banning, format changes. Then in 3 years, we got Modern Horizons 4, and then it all changes all over again, right? Like, it just feels like the cycle of abuse continues. And I feel like at this point, we just have to be okay with it. I'm just kind of like eating the fact that that's going to be the norm for now. And I just hope that maybe next Modern Horizons, the mill players can eat too, because at this point, we're getting nothing. We got Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Fractured Sanity out of the kind of last rotation of things with Baldur's Gate and Fractured Sanity coming out of Modern Horizons through. And you know what? I'm very happy for it. It's keeping us alive for now. But again, regardless, it is a very tough situation for the average Modern player. I mean, a lot of people will argue that Pioneer is that description of a competitive format that goes through standard. Even, I mean, Pioneer is going through a terrible time right now. Rakdos Vampire is about a quarter of the metagame right now. Abzan Amalia being almost a fifth of the metagame here. Is it Phoenix about 12% as well? If we go to 14 days, I mean, 30%, a third of the metagame is Rakdos Vampires. If we go to 7 days, I mean, it paints that picture, right? Like, the metagame is very stale here. Like, obviously something is coming out of Pioneer here, whether it be Vein Ripper and Amalia just completely being shut out of the Pioneer metagame. Is it Phoenix is probably just going to go back up top. Rakdos midrange is kind of just like Rakdos Vampires, but with like a slightly different package. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's arguably the same deck, right? Like, it's crazy to me where Pioneer is right now and people actually like being able to play this format and playing it over Modern. Like, I know like a lot of people will say Modern is in a crazier place. I just feel like you can do more fun things, you know? Like, maybe that's me. I have my biased opinion. I'm a bit of an elitist when it comes to formats. I like my fetches and my formats, which is why I also like Commander. Pauper gets an exception because Pauper is probably the best constructed format out there. Let me know in the comment section down below. Shout out to all my Pauper lovers. Give some love to Pauper in the comment section down below. Again, best constructed format out there. But Pioneer, not exactly where we want to be either based on distributions. And I mean, if we look at the Modern metagame, there's one deck I really want to highlight that has changed over time, that kind of really changes that idea of how, you master one deck over time and your deck doesn't rotate and stuff like that. Modern metagame right now, absolutely insane place. Let's look at Tron. This is the current iteration of Tron. It is arguably just a prison list. It's a prison control list. No longer are they playing Trinispheres and stuff, of course, but they were like last week. Right now, you're playing Devourer of Destiny for consistency pieces. You're playing like where's the Mycosynth? You're playing some amount of Trinispheres, but I guess this list isn't playing the Mycosynth for like land destruction, but you're still playing like Urza Saga to tutor for stuff like the cookbook. Like, this list is a little like brewy, but generally speaking, Tron is completely like, it's completely different. It's completely different right now. You're even playing like Ugin's Labyrinth and everything. This is a slightly brewy version, but again, this is where Tron is at right now. Karn the Great Creator staple. This is Tron from 2 years ago. A lot more green. You notice how the colors change. Oh, colorless? Green, right, because we're playing Besejus. Again, a little bit of not necessarily Modern Horizons, but Modern Horizons-esque type of design. We're still playing Karn Liberateds in this list, by the way. 4 Karn the Great Creator, 4 Karn the Liberated, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Dismembers, Sylvan Scrying, Ancient Stirring. This is the Tron deck that you would think of for recent Modern players. This is what you would think of when you think of Tron. But even still, this is like, this is starting that Modern Horizons power creeping. It's starting there because Karn the Great Creator was a big shift for that deck. This is a version of the deck without the One Ring. One Ring is not around yet. It is not turned into a modern deck. We're still playing 4 Karn Liberated. I mean, this is 2019. This is the Tron that I remember when I started playing modern like way back when, right? Like I started playing the fall after the twin banning, and this is the modern that I remember. This is the Tron that I remember. 4 Karn Liberated, Oblivion Stone, Ugin, Hard Control, Relic of Progenitus, main board. Like, you were here to stop Tron. 4 main board forests for the Ancient Stirring, for the Sylvan Scrying to play against Field of Ruin. Sanctum of Ugin, Blast Zone, Ghost Quarter are your utility lands. Like, come on. Leyline of the Void, because you just didn't have those options out of the board. Now, different time. A lot of context of 4 Leyline of the Void in the sideboard and Relic of Progenitus. We won't get into that. That's a whole other conversation. But regardless, Modern has changed. And you can tell how the deck has changed drastically over time. In terms of the cards that you're playing around, in terms of the staples of the deck, the colors of the deck, and how you aren't even playing the same deck from 2019 all the way to 2024. Now, I will say it shouldn't be your expectation, generally speaking, that 5 years later, 6 years later, that you're playing the same deck. I will also concede to that. There should be change over time. There should be progress. And this is the price of progress. Pun fully intended, by the way. And I think that is okay for Tron, right? This is a deck list that, you know, generally speaking, will always have that same plan over and over again. It's playing the Tron lands, the 4 of each, looking for them, building out into big Ulamags, controlling with their planeswalkers and their artifacts. Right now, it feels like the way Tron has evolved has been the exemplification of how Modern has evolved as a deck that generally plays, cheats out big things, but still plays some control pieces and some prison elements. How those prison elements have adapted to current Modern right now. How the Karn sideboards have looked. I mean, now with Karn the Great Creator, you're playing a complete wish board, but even still, like, here you weren't playing Karn Liberated, so you actually had to sideboard. But then if you go to 2022, you had Karn the Great Creator, but it doesn't mean that your whole board was dedicated to something like that. I mean, look, you had Force of Vigors and you had Veil of Summers. Like, there was an element of more sideboarding actually happening in the Karn decks. Now, your whole sideboard is pretty much just Karn Wishboard. Like, yeah, there's 2 Dismembers, but that doesn't mean, like, bring in like 2 removal spells. It's pretty much still a 13 card Karn Wishboard. It's completely different. It's a 1-ring deck with value. You play the 1-ring because you can draw into the other pieces that you need to remove the game. You don't really need to play the Dismembers. You're playing them for consistency and to be able to remove like 1 creature early on. That's really all it's there for. And that's the scary part, how Tron has evolved over time. And this is Modern right now. If you look at the spread of the metagame itself, look at the percentages. About 15% of the metagame is Nadu, Jeskai at 10, Boros Energy roughly at 10, about 9%. This is the 14-day metagame right here. Roughly the same thing, 15, 10, and 8. A little bit lower for Jeskai control here. Actually, Boros and Jeskai flip here. And then finally, the 7-day metagame, 15%, 9, and 9. So we can see again that roughly speaking, it feels like this is what we should want out of Modern. That we have a combo deck, an aggro deck, and a control deck. We don't necessarily have a mid-range deck, but combo, control, and aggro. Very popular archetypes, a little bit of something for everybody. Feels like Modern should be fine, right? Well, I mean, based on this last tweet from Andrea Mengucci, it's kind of crazy here. My local store just announced it will delay all 3 Modern RCQs to September and October to avoid having to play with Nadu because their players said they wouldn't go. I guess WotC is helping players to enjoy their summer Sundays. I mean, hey, what is the hardest thing for any nerd to do? Head outside and touch grass. And if there ever was a reason to do so, it's the lack of tournaments. Thanks to the ban restricted announcement happening on August 26th, they are sticking to their schedule. You know, every content creator has made their videos about it last week. Kind of crazy to see big LGSs are making their changes to delay multiple big tournaments because they don't want to play Nadu, especially because their players have expressed that they will not go. They do not want to play a Nadu metagame. They do not want to buy into a deck that is going to get banned, and they don't want to buy into a deck that beats a deck that gets banned that will have to adapt afterwards. It's just not like a good financial decision to make at all. And I mean, a certain aspect of financial decisions have to come in because this is it's a hobby. It's an expensive one. It is a luxury hobby, and you have to spend money and resources that you have. And everyone, with nowadays, with the state of the world, you have limited resources. You might as well spend that well. Let's not play Magic. We'll play an MTGO. We'll play Commander. That's why Commander's at an all-time high. You can build 1 or 2 decks, and you're fine. You make minimum upgrades to them. You have still plenty of game. You can use politicking, not the hard game, to enjoy the game, whereas stuff like Constructed is really going through a big downturn right now. And Wizards of the Coast is trying to figure out what to do with it. What do we do with constructed Magic other than make cute furry animals and horror themed sets to entice players? Is the standard decks that we play, the standard sets that we play, going to become Fortnite-ificated as well? I mean, yes, because we're going to get Marvel next year. It is going to happen. But does that mean that is the only way forward? There are plenty of examples of people coming into the game because of the multiple universes beyond sets. But does that mean that needs to happen as standard so that the standard sets become more of a showcase of art and showcase of story and showcase of visual perspective versus the cards themselves? Do the constructed players get left behind, and does the wonder of the cards themselves take forefront? And is that actually a net better thing for the game? Because this is what this leads to. Because without the regular active product helping the constructed environment, we are left with Modern Horizons becoming the fix. We are left with the abandoned restricted announcements becoming the quote unquote fix. What do we do with Modern, with Legacy, and with the constructed formats that we love if they don't change and they're constantly being, I guess, controlled by the shareholders up at Wizards that are still trying to sell their Modern Horizons pack and make sure Nadu gets its time in the sun? What do we do when our tournaments don't play, when our decks feel bad, and we just don't get to play the game that we want to, the format that we love? We don't get to master the decks that we want as Wizards of the Coast intends on their website. This is a game that they wanted. This is a game they've curated, but not the one that they're necessarily advertising. It's a little confusing for the consumer, I should say. It's kind of frustrating at the same time. Something will happen on August 26th. We just have to hope that that's not too late for every single constructed format out there.